Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mavens of Manufacturing. Today, I have Jennifer Sewell with us today. She is the marketing director or director of marketing, of Vention. How are you this morning, Jennifer?
Very good. Looking forward to our discussion. Thanks for having me, Meaghan.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So to start off our conversation, I like to get a little background information about yourself and just hear more about what you do at Vention and some of your responsibilities with the company.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I'm the director of marketing at Vention. And I, alongside my talented team, are focused on everything on the branded marketing side. So from product marketing to brand development, user education, and community, that all falls within my team's domain. And really looking forward to discussing more on the community element of that in a short while.
Me too. So, also with you personally, is manufacturing something that you thought about when you were in high school or, middle school? Was it always like a career pathway of your choice, or how did you fall in within this sector?
Absolutely not, actually. When I was in university, my career aspirations were more alongside the consulting side. I did a lot of
Okay.
case competitions in university, and I thought, okay, that's the route I'm going to go. And right out of university, I joined a IoT analytics and AI company whose domain was specifically in manufacturing. And I kind of fell in love with the space. I fell in love with the technology aspect of it and the startup energy that found it. So, fast forward 8, 9 years, and I'm still in the manufacturing space, and I love it. I think there's so much potential. It's such a disruptive space. There's opportunities to connect with such a wide user base. But it was definitely not on my career trajectory when I was first starting out at university.
I tried leaving manufacturing at one point in my life and went into higher education, and I was completely bored out of my mind. So I understand like the whole concept of like falling into it by accident and really loving the people involved with it and the many things that are going on, especially with IoT and automation and interoperability. I really wanted to talk to you today about some of the things that Vention is doing to really connect with your audience in a more humane way. So, some of the challenges that manufacturers are facing today is really marketing to the next generation to get them excited about manufacturing and engineering. And as we all know, that's causing a bigger gap within the manufacturing skills gap. So I wanted to hear from you some of the things that you are working on with your team at Vention to really kind of connect with your community as well as potential customers and even the next generation to get them excited about the sector. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I'll start with a brief, let's say, elevator pitch of Vention as a whole, so you could get a better sense of what community means for us. So Vention is a manufacturing automation platform, and it allows users to all design, automate, order, and deploy complex manufacturing equipment in a single digital environment. So if we have any marketers on the call today, you can almost compare Vention's machine builder to Canva, right? It allows you to drag and drop parts into a design environment so that you can design complex equipment. You don't need an engineering degree for that. You could simulate your equipment in a code-free programming environment. So again, you don't need to have a lengthy experience or degree in engineering to be able to design and automate your equipment. All of your equipment can be added to a cart, just like you would on Amazon, and it ships next day. So it's really satisfying that I need it now economy. And everything comes in a flat pack box. So you can assemble, a palletizer with a single Allen key. So if we want to put our marketing hats on and kind of humanize Vention's brand, Vention is almost an amalgamation of Lego, Canva, IKEA, and Amazon. So, we're taking a traditionally industrial B2B space, and we're bringing it directly to the consumer and giving them the tools that allow them to more easily automate their factory floors. So from the beginning, that's always been our mission, is how do we democratize a once very untouchable industry, or an industry that was only touchable to manufacturers that produce high volume, low variety products, bring it to the masses, or bring it to manufacturers who could otherwise not afford it and have the resources in-house. So
That's
your question around humanizing, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I just think that it's really cool how all of these new technologies are coming out to make um, things like programming and building machines and designing more user friendly. So you don't really have to be, a good engineer or design engineer to kind of work these things through. So I think that's an amazing thing because I am not a design engineer, and I went to a trade show and they had something similar, and you just had to put it together, and it was really simple to use. So that's fantastic what you guys are doing.
If you think about the brands that you love most, or like some of the most lovable brands, they're brands that are democratizing or providing access to a solution that was once just so untouchable. So I know I always go back to Canva, because when if you're a marketer and you wanted to design, you had to go to graphic design school for a year, 2 years just to be able to figure out Photoshop. Canva came in and said, nope, we're going to provide everyone the tools to just drag and drop and design. Vention had that same mentality. It's like, why should users have to go to school for 4 or 5 years in engineering just to be able to design a simple jig and fixture? It doesn't make sense, especially in this era where product life cycles are so short. We need to be pumping out different types of equipment and fixtures much quicker than before. So we need the tools to do that quicker. But I think your question around humanizing it, you hit the nail on the head, right? You need brands that have a human element. It speaks to the human. It doesn't speak to a machine. And traditionally, brand stories for manufacturing companies, it was very much centered around like dirty environments, rugged environments, and the machine, the product, the specs, and the price. That was always the hero. But the reality is like manufacturing is very competitive. So if we're trying to differentiate on product features or price, it's going to be quite hard to connect with the end user, because we're always just going to be pushing a price or pushing a feature. And it's very hard to develop that authentic brand story. So the lens that we've always taken, and my position as a marketer, is in order to truly connect with an audience, the human needs to be the hero. So at a brand level, and again, if we go back to those simple tools like the Canvas of the world, or the Well Simples that allow anyone to design, to trade, the human is the center of it. So from a Vention point of view, for us, we're shifting it from products and features and environments to people. Instead of drowning customers in features and stuff, we're bringing the customer stories to our users. So one way that we do that is case studies. Case studies are a huge component of building that brand dialogue. If you want someone to be able to understand, hey, that's been done before and it's been done by someone like me, the best way to do that is to put the person as the hero rather than the machine or the environment. Vention, we spend a lot of time connecting with our clients in the field, getting an understanding of what was that rough challenge that they tried to face and why couldn't they do it before, and then bringing that message forward and making them the hero of the dialogue. The second is, as an industry or as a company, we need to be so consistent in the tone that we bring to our clients. So whether that's about accessibility or joyfulness, ruggedness, whatever your company's position is, we need to be so consistent. And this spans not just from a marketing level, but down to your product. Is your product positioned to support that brand tone of accessibility, usability, all the way to sales and customer success? So the first is, of course, changing the dialogue from product to people. The second is the consistency in your tone. And the third is, of course, just being very explicit in everything you do. So, as a company, you're moving forward with that same tone and that intent, and your customers will always feel that because it'll radiate throughout your organization.
Those are all really good points. And I love that you brought up case studies, because I feel some manufacturers are still kind of hesitant to push for case studies in terms of when they're connecting with their current customers. And I know there are some companies who have NDAs and they really can't share certain information, but there is ways to work around, that NDA contract that you have with some companies, where you're not sharing some of that information, but you can still share the main focus of the case study. And that can really help, build trusting relationships, not just with your customers, but other audience members within your community. Do you have any like suggestions for manufacturers who are struggling to get that type of information created to help them humanize their brand? Like, what can they do to work around some of that NDA information? I don't know if Vention has that same challenge with the product that you're offering, but I'm just curious to hear as a marketer how you can work that way around, because that's one of the things I'm trying to do right now with a company I'm working with.
This is one of the biggest challenges. And in my previous organization, it was a top-down company, right? So implement IoT and AI solutions is a multi-year project, and you don't want your competitors to know that you're working on it, you're implementing AI and IoT. So as a client, you're like, oh no, I don't want to do a case study. I don't want them to know. Much harder in an enterprise solution. But if you come to an environment like Vention, where you're dealing with smaller manufacturing companies who, again, IP is so important to them. They don't want the world to know how they process them, what their processes are. So how we've gone about that is twofold. So one of our products is called the Public Design Library. And essentially, one of our products is that you can design in a 3D design environment. And if you publish your designs to the Public Design Library, then the world can view your designs. They can design from that, they can share it with them. And then the challenge is, again, is, okay, well, I don't want to share my design because there's IP there. How we go about it is that we can do blinded publishing. So you don't necessarily have to tie it to a specific company, or you don't need to tie it to a specific user. This protects them so that no one can tie it to their organization. For example, if you work at Facebook, obviously you can't be publishing work you're doing for Facebook. But if it's not tied to a specific author, then again, you can share your work. At the more long form case study, again, we have that same mentality. So the ultimate case study is being able to tie a logo to it. So if we want to use Facebook as an example, you want to be able to say, hey, Facebook had this challenge, this is how we helped them, and this is the solution. But if they are uncomfortable or they've got NDAs in place as well, then we'll just remove the logo from it and we'll position it as a leading technology company or a leading software company. And this has worked really well for us because they still want to see their work in the spotlight, but they don't want to necessarily tie it to their team or their organization. And then at the last extreme is you've got much smaller manufacturing companies or certified system integrators like Walt, for example, who are proud to show the work that they're doing in automation. So they will actively generate content for us, or they will be happy to provide metrics on performance improvements or operating metrics as part of that case study. So I think it's about finding a balance between very large organizations that typically are very strict on what they share and smaller organizations that actually benefit from having that exposure.
Those are all great tips, and I'm going to definitely work on that with the companies that I'm working with now who are afraid to even pursue case studies. I'm going to work on one in aerospace coming up soon, and that's a big industry that does not like sharing information at all. So I'm hoping this outline I create, that all works out. So one of the main goals for Mavens is to generate awareness around some of these opportunities within engineering and manufacturing to help close the skills gap. So I was just wondering, at Vention, are you struggling with some of the same things other companies are struggling with in terms of recruiting the next generation workforce or getting the right skilled talent in the door for some of the available positions you might have? What are some of the things that the skills gap is providing pain points for you?
Yeah, I think there's two sides of the coin to this answer. There's what Vention is doing, and then what Vention enables related to the skills gap challenge. So what Vention is doing, we invest a lot in building our employer brand. So our values of accessibility, joyfulness, we carry this throughout the organization. The values are literally plastered around the office, and the importance of that is we want to recruit people who carry those values with them. So social selling, having our employees attracting top talent is the biggest tool for us. So again, radiating those messages to the outward market. And one thing that, as a company we do is we're super performance driven, and we make that clear from the beginning, and that this is an environment that you'll thrive in. And we don't value necessarily titles or education. We value execution and passion and how much they resonate with those values. And you can see just based on our Glassdoor ratings, like, yes, this is a very performance-driven organization, but the people who come here, they want to be here. So once we get people into the door, we invest a lot in employee growth, because retention is a super important metric for us. Mm-hmm. And there's typically two types of management tracks, right? You have someone who's a very good developer and they want to follow that developer expert path. And we've created different training modules or opportunities for them to develop themselves as an expert. And then on the other side, someone more like myself don't necessarily want to be an expert in a very engineering domain. I'd rather follow that management career path, where as a business professional, I develop my leadership skills and I can carry those on with me, whether outside of Vention or inside of Vention. And within both of those tracks, we've got different training opportunities or different tools to enable both types of profiles. We, as I mentioned, titles and education are not the first thing that we look for when recruiting. And in fact, some of our top performers with the most institutional knowledge, working on some of the most complex products, are literally fresh out of school, or they're like 2 years out of school. This for us has allowed us to become super agile, because you've got young professionals entering the workforce that are very open-minded, who are willing to just push the barriers forward, and again, who resonate that brand value of accessibility. They're not trying to carry over mindsets from different organizations and peg it into a new organization that doesn't have a benchmark. So that's one of the ways that we've helped combat the labor shortages, is looking in different avenues and not necessarily narrowing it down to specific titles and education. The other side of that is Vention. Our product in itself is trying to address this skills gap labor shortage, right? So you used to have to be able to design a simple jig, you used to have a 4-year engineering degree just to open up SolidWorks. Then you'd have to have someone that's looking for all of the parts. So they're literally finding parts online, opening an Excel, tracking it. Then you needed someone who was skilled in automation just to simulate a simple, let's say, cobot palletizer or a simple 7th axis movement. And then you again needed a machinist just to install the piece of equipment you've ordered. This is 4 very, deeply expert people that you need to recruit for one piece of equipment. It doesn't make sense. It's not sustainable in these short product lifecycle era that we're entering. So that's what Vention's platform has done, is like, let's take all of these disparate processes that require so much education and knowledge and put it in one simplified solution, so that, anyone can do it, even if you don't have that engineering background. And that's the message we're trying to put forward, is that we don't need to have complex technical abilities to add automation to our manufacturing floors.
Do you offer any type of like upskilling or retraining too with your current employees, or you said sometimes you hire kids that are right out of school. So what level of school is that? Is that high school? Is that tech school? Is it a 4-year college university? Like, what's the age range that you're hiring new employees at? Because some companies, they have on their job description, you have to have a certain degree, or a certain certification before you get hired on. And I know there's other companies that are kind of experimenting with not necessarily like a degree or certification, because if they have the right skill sets that they think that are needed for them to succeed within their company, they'll offer opportunities for continuing education and actually pay for it. So is that the same kind of strategy Vention has with your new employees?
So we used to be, we are still an engineering company. So the mindset used to be, well, we've got to hire engineers if we're an engineering company. And then we realized like that just, it doesn't make sense, because how do you portray this message and this brand story of, you don't need to be an engineer to automate, and then you only hire engineers. So that's not, we don't only look for engineers when we're recruiting. We have everyone from PhDs in like liberal arts in sciences, all the way to professionals who graduated from technical college, so they never went to university or traditional university in Canada, working on, again, robotic solutions and all of our softwares. So we hire predominantly, I would say the average age is early 30s here, late 20s, early 30s, and they're graduating from a 3-year university program. We also offer co-op programs, so anyone who's within, it could be a business or an engineering degree semester off, or they have it within their university, they would like to work in a professional setting for one semester. We take those students on as well. And then at a community level, we also are teaching an entrepreneurship class at an engineering school in Montreal, and we support capstone students who are about to graduate from their engineering degrees. We give them access to the platform, we train them on it, we give them discounts on the hardware so that they don't feel that it's too far reaching for them, and they can really get their hands dirty in the tech and the hardware.
So October is known as Manufacturing Month. Are there specific things that you do to, get more involved with the community or some of the high schools or middle schools in your area to kind of play off of the whole Manufacturing Month excitement that we all get involved with?
We haven't done much at the high school level, but in fact, that's a great opportunity. We have a few of our sales guys. Their children do like Meet the Parents Day, and because we work in robotics, it's great that they could bring a robot to the children's school and they could show, hey, my dad works with robots. This is how easy it is to program. If you want to come, you can come try to program it yourself. So we're bringing engineering, or like the notion of very simple engineering, to students at a very young level, but we don't have any formal programs in place for high school students at the moment. I think it's a great opportunity because, again, it speaks to that accessibility and bringing it to the students at such a young age versus, gosh, I just did a 4-year university degree, now what?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, if it's something that they can easily do and hold in their hand, that's going to have a longer lasting effect on them, I think. I did the Manufacturing Youth Tour Summit last week, and one of the presenters was Aaron Prather. And even though he wasn't there in person, he did a virtual presentation with the students. And the moment they pulled out the PlayStation game console to control the robot that he was on, all of the kids just kind of lost their mind and wanted to engage with it, wanted to most of the kids were just like, wait, I have a PlayStation controller at home. Can I do this at home? Is this something? So I think when you actually physically bring something to them and show them and let them play with it a little bit, it gets them more excited about the opportunities that are in engineering and manufacturing. So I think that would be great for you guys to think about and do, especially with middle school students.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And actually, Vention came to be. Vention's CEO was like a maker from the age of 5. He was taking apart engines. He was taking apart his lawnmower to create like little virtual planes and little mini planes and stuff. So, sparking that curiosity from a elementary school student, that this carries you throughout your life. Like, look, Vention came to be what it is today based on a young child's curiosity that just drove him throughout his university and career.
That's awesome. So I already asked that question. I was going to ask it again. We won't do that. What type of advice? So as a woman in manufacturing and engineering, I know it's different being involved in this sector from the marketing and sales side. That's mostly the area that I've been involved with. I've been writing for manufacturing since 2008. And there's still a small percentage of women involved on the technical side of things and an operation side of things. So this is going to be a 2-part question. 1, because you're in the marketing part of the sector, but also 2, because you work with the engineers that are designing the technology. What sort of advice would you give to women who are not sure if a career in manufacturing or engineering is the place for them? Because that's one of the things I want to do is I want to increase the amount of women that are in the sector and help drive more thought innovation and design innovation through diversifying it. So what would you say to a young girl who might not know what she wants to be yet?
I think The number one thing is to not be afraid to explore new fields, new technologies altogether. You just got to dive deep into it, get your hands dirty, and just play around. As business, graduates of business schools, our mentality going into university is typically consulting, because we watch The Firm and we all think that we need to be consultants, and we don't think about going into technology or manufacturing companies. But the reality is, and that was me, that was totally me like 10 years ago. But the reality is there's so much opportunity, and you don't necessarily want an industry full of engineers that come with that engineering lens. You need those people with business degrees that can translate very technical, product heavy concepts into brand stories, into value propositions, and just more human case studies. So I think one of the things as a woman and a young grad, we'll look at a job description in a very technical field. It could be robotics, it could be AI, it could be a manufacturing company, and we'll think, oh, I know nothing about this domain or this vertical. How could I market that? But that's exactly what they want. Is they want someone who doesn't necessarily know the ins and outs of the vertical, someone who can come in and communicate that to a wider user base of people who also don't know that vertical. So my number one thing is don't be afraid to get your hands dirty, play around, because our biggest asset is our curious minds, and that's what companies are looking for. You don't need to be an engineer to work in manufacturing.
I think that's a great point, because when I first started looking for jobs when I got out of college, the first question they asked me is, there's like, what is your engineering experience? And I'm like, I have none. Am I in the right place? Like, I thought I was applying for a writing job. So that's such an interesting point. Well, before I let you go, Jennifer, I wanted to see if there was a question that you were hoping I would ask for this interview, but I didn't quite get to it. What question would that be?
That's a loaded question. I think your questions are fantastic, and we could keep talking for quite a while. I don't think I have anything top of mind. It may be just one thing as a benchmark. If anyone would like to know how we're humanizing manufacturing, they can take a look at our case study section and see the amazing clients that we've been working with and the stories that they've brought to the market and have been willing to share. So that would be one thing I encourage.
And if they want to get in contact with you or learn more about Vention, where should they go?
So you can visit www.vention.io. And it's loaded with cool tools. You can also try the platform for free. So if you just want to play around in there and take a look at all the features that you can use, that's a great place to start.
And before I let you go, a comment did come in at the last minute from Mark Sinasosa. Great statement. Our biggest asset is our curious minds. Thank you so much, Mark. We appreciate your comment. And thank you, Jennifer, for taking time out of your day to come speak with me on Mavens of Manufacturing. I really enjoyed having this conversation. And if there's anything that I can do to help Vention, please let me know. I really like what you guys are doing, making engineering and manufacturing a little bit easier and more exciting for kids, I think is really what's going to get them attracted to this sector and want to join it as a career pathway. So thank you for sharing all of your information. And to everyone out there that's been joining us today, thank you for joining another Mavens of Manufacturing episode. Tune in next week for another great show, and I hope you all have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Bye. This episode of Mavens of Manufacturing has been sponsored by Thinker. Thinker helps solve meaningful, measurable problems for organizations that change the world. Grow your business, reduce your risk at thinkerventures.com. That's thinkerventures.com.